Easy crew, what's up? So quick video here. I've been busy getting some DJ sets together, so haven't had a huge amount of time for stuff, but I thought I'd put this together. It's pretty basic stuff, but it occurred to me the other day I saw a YouTube video and someone was saying that they bought a hardware sampler and were a bit disappointed when they found out they couldn't load samples onto it. And it just occurred to me that if you didn't grow up with this equipment, you might not be familiar with how it works and, you know, how to get sounds on it. So I'm just going to run through my process and just a real basic kind of how-to on getting samples in a sampler, and also how I would do the same thing using a drum rack in Ableton Live. So let's get into it. So let's just walk through the process. So this is an old electro box set, and it's got the Apache break on this tune, Breakdance Electro Boogie. Probably the only break I actually own on vinyl. But this first step will be how it was done back in the day. So first we're just listening for where the break comes in. So if I just spin back here, there's the break. That's it. I'm just looking for the spot where the kick is and making sure that that scratch isn't over the kick. So we found the spot. The next step is to speed the record up. Now, you do this in order to save memory space inside your sampler because they don't really have a huge amount of space. And there it is. Once it's inside the sampler, you'll slow it down. And that in itself gives the sample a particular sound. So I'm just going to time the length of the sample so that when I record it into the sampler, I can set kind of the exact length that I need so that I don't have to trim too much when it's in the machine. All right, let's spin it back and we'll get over to the sampler and get ready to record it in. So I've already named it and put in the time I need for the sample to be recorded. So as soon as I hit enter, the sampler will start recording. And there it is, job done. Just going to crank this a bit so we can hear it. So we caught that scratch at the beginning. So I did set the time just a little bit larger than the sample because I knew I'd need a bit of leeway either side. So I'm going to trim off that front end so that we get it right on the kick. So I've just pitched it down so I can get as close as possible to the front end of that kick. That sounds about right. All right, so now I'll just demonstrate how I do that with breaks that I've got in my sample library. I've got a little bit of a low pass on that EQ there just to take some of those lows out. So I've got this session set to the BPM I want to work at, and I tend to turn warp off and just get the sample in time with the session that way. I just want to keep the sample as pure as I can and emulate just repitching it how you would on a turntable. At this point, if I was going to drag it into a drum rack, I'd freeze and flatten it. So let's open up a drum rack and I'll just demonstrate that. So we'll call this one kick. I'm just turning the release back so that the sample stops when I take my finger off the key. And there it is. Then I drag that across, call this one snare. We'll just go super basic for now. And there it is. All right, so now I'm going to speed it up and we'll record that into the S950, just how we did with the turntable. One of the reasons I set the BPMs in the Ableton session is because I've just pitched up 6 semitones, and it means that when I get back into the sampler, I know I can just pitch it down 6 semitones and it's going to be at the BPMs I want. So I'll just name this sample. I'll chuck this on 12. Set the time. And I can use the Ableton timeline to know how long the sample is. I'll set that threshold again. And there's a sound coming in. I'll just unmute that. And there it is. Setting the level there. And then we're ready. So the sampler's waiting for audio now. And there it is. Let's check it. It's in there. Just crank it again so you guys can hear it. Pitch it down, and we're pretty much good to go then. So the next step, I'll copy the sample by renaming it, and now I'm just going to cut one from the snare like we did in the drum rack. It's close. Let's pitch it down so we can hear where we are. So I'm just feeling how responsive this playback button is. As soon as I don't feel any kind of latency going on, then I know I've got the sample cut right on the nose. Let's have a look. Yep. That's about right. So now I'll make a program for it. And with the first key group, we'll put the first sample on there from the kick, and I'll put it on C3. Sorry, the screen's gone white there. I'm just turning constant pitch on so that the sample doesn't pitch up as we play up the keyboard. So now we've got a key group with the sample from the kick, a key group with the sample from the snare set to C sharp. Let's just test that. There it is. And there's the one from the snare. So first, we need to set the OctaMED session at the right beats per minute for the sample. So that feels pretty good. I'm just kind of checking that it's grooving. So we'll have a bit of a mess about and program something. We'll just do something for demonstration purposes. That'll do. So I'm just going to make a quick bass here. So the S950 comes with a tone sample loaded in. It's just a sine wave. I've created a new key group and I've spanned it across the majority of the keyboard here. And we'll just mess around with the envelope. Constant pitch is off now, so the sample will pitch up and down the keyboard. So by turning sustain down, you then have access to control the length of the sample with the decay. Because OctaMED doesn't have a note off, you have to program a note off. That's if you don't turn sustain down, the sample will just continue to play. And there we go. As you see, if I turn this up, it's longer. But I'm going to go for something short like this. I'll just set the MIDI channel for the key group, and then I'll do the same over in OctaMED. And that should be us. There we go, we've got some bass. So let's just try and play something in now. Just kind of editing some of the mistakes here. That sounds about right. So now I'm going to copy that whole section and just double the size of the block and paste that across so that I can put some variation in the next half. Cool, so I've switched the grid on there. I'm just going to do something with that break. A couple of little snare rolls or something. First I'll chuck one at the end of the block. We'll do a little velocity fade on there. In OctaMED, that's just a C command. There you go. Let's do another little one. So we'll fade down on this one. That'll do. So I'm just going to jump into the S2000 here just for a laugh. We'll add a few more bits in here and see what happens. I've got a program here that I used in another track. We'll just load it in and see if there's anything in there we can chuck in. I'll bring in this hits program. Let's have a listen. What's on here? Yeah, maybe we'll use that one. We'll set the MIDI channel. And once again, do the same in OctaMED and we're off. I'll do a little roll on that vocal as well. Alright, and then once again, just for good measure, we'll bring in a pad. This is from that pack I made that I gave away in that Casio pads video. Sounds alright, we'll use that. Once again, I set the MIDI channel on the sampler and in OctaMED. And we'll just see if we can make something sound a bit musical. I think that'll work. That's good. Now I'm going to do the same thing, so I'll just copy that whole block, double the size again. I'm aiming for a block size of 256 here. That gives me 8 bars. We'll paste that, and then we can do some variation on the second half of that. Chuck that grid on again, and I'll just do something slightly different on the pad there. So from here, obviously, you'd go on and layer a bunch more in there. I didn't use that Apache break yet. I might get round to that if I decide I want to do something with this. And there we go, that's pretty much it. So that's kind of how I'll get my samples into the samplers and get going with something. And then from here on out, it'll just be detail, chopping more. So I hope that was interesting for someone. I always find it interesting watching how other people work. You can check out my tunes over on PPJ Recordings. I've got a remix out on Karma Recordings. There's stuff in the pipeline. So follow the links in the video description. And yeah, big up to all you junglists out there.